So, all right. So, looking at the syllabus, there's a couple of ways to make your avatars. Let's stick with make human for right now. If you want to do some other ones, feel free to look at them. Even character generator, which I said is expensive, does have a 30 day free trial. Um, this MB Lab thing is actually a Blender add-on that has a pretty big community. So there's a lot of different options, and this one's free. But there's also this cool app here that I was using last semester, where you can actually maybe even make a scan of yourself and make your own avatar. So tons of ways of doing things. But we're going to start with Make Human. Make Human Community, and it's free, open source from Carnegie Mellon University. And you go to downloads, and we want to download the stable release, and we want to do Windows for my computer, but that has Linux and Mac as well. And then when you download it, it has a zip file that is has some other files in there as well we're going to use today. Let me see if I can find mine. I just reinstalled it the other day. And it is considered final now. It's no longer an alpha. It is, there we go. So when you get the download, there's an executable to install, but there's also some add-ons, and I'll show you how to incorporate the add-ons for Blender as well today.
Should we install this to a computer that has access to a webcam?
Make Human doesn't utilize a webcam, but the other processes later on down the road. The pipeline is it's variable. The webcam is really only comes into play when you do either Radical, which will be its own standalone thing, or if you use Blender, there's actually a way of using a Kinect inside of Blender. So install your Make Human, and it's kind of funny. You see, I cleaned off my desktop even just last week, and look how things just keep on piling up. So it's hard to keep that desktop clean through the semester. So here's Make Human 1.2, and it's got a lot of great new features, and it's streamlined its whole process. So it's great to use. So of course we start off with this really unappealing avatar to start off with, and if you see here with the sliders on the left, this is the average of all averages of avatars. It is halfway male, halfway female, halfway old, halfway young, halfway muscular, halfway unmuscular. It's even equal parts African, Asian, and Caucasian. So it's interesting dialogue you can have right then about spectrums and fluidity and all that kind of stuff. But this is just how it's designed. All these pieces are essentially OBJ files with deformations on them that move them around, and it's pretty cool. Like you can make some things that don't look like basically a weird eraser for a pencil. So as you slide them, you might see that you start becoming more, as it's saying, gender this way or gender this way, or you can go old, or you can go all the way down to little baby, right? So these are like the kind of like the macro level sliders. But then if you want to, then or you should, you can explore all the other different kind of things. For instance, you can really get into the gender proportions, or we can really massage the face. So in a lot of ways, this is very similar to the way the workflow that MetaHuman will work. It's just using smaller files and easier to parse kind of workflows. And it's very, very in depth. You can spend a lot of time on this. For instance, I can just look at, so right now we're on face and we're on head shape. But all these sliders just for head shape can also be, they also have sliders for head size and foreheads and eyebrows and neck. Like you can really get in here and sculpt this character. Really just spending time with noses and all these kind of features, and then deal with just like really sculpting the mouth you want. So it is as much as you want to getting into it. Here I can navigate around, or we can lock it to the center. Torso the same way. We have torso, hips, stomach. Right, we can give a gut. I think. We can move the navel up and down, belly button sliders, right? So there's just tons of things we can get in here. We can really sculpt the pelvis and the buttocks. Arms and legs, of course, we have like finger dimensions, shoulders, stance, all that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, we can also just say randomize. So I'm going to randomize, which really never makes a good looking avatar. There's just too many variables. It's always somewhat like that's not real. Like those aren't real proportions. But that's all I'm gonna do because I don't want to spend time because I'm just demoing this stuff. Let's just get something that's reasonably human shaped. That's somewhat human shaped. That guy's a weird head. Look at the forehead. Anyway, this looks fine. All right, so those are all about the shape of the geometry, and you can spend a lot of time on that stuff. And obviously, they're demoing that for the meta-human that you can really go in there. You can also, you can bring in some custom stuff if you want to. The whole thing has a huge community. There's always forums. There's all this user-generated content. So feel free to, it does get a little weird and dark in some places. There are a lot of features that get a little, little sexy. So keep that in mind. And then it gives you some measurements, right? So I can see how tall is my character actually, right? So my height is 117 centimeters. So that might be important for what you're doing. All right, so now I have the shape of the character, and I want to move on to the clothes, like the geometry, some other things. So it's a very limited palette right here. And in fact, a lot of these things just like say, make human on them, right? It gave me some clothes. It gave me some pants and a shirt. But here's where I want to take a break from creating the avatar, and I want to show you some new features from Make Human. All the way on the right is this community tab. And this actually gives you a chance to navigate the entire database of user submitted content, and it's quite large. So the first time you open this up, it'll be completely blank, and you say synchronize. What it's doing is it's pulling down like the spreadsheet of all the assets. It's not pulling down the assets themselves. You do that one at a time, but the first time you do it, it's just to do the synchronize the list of assets and to keep it fresh because it might adapt. There might be new assets that come out, and then once you have this giant list, it should be synchronized. Once you have this giant list, you can filter it by different asset types. And like for instance right here, I want to look at just poses or just hair types. Update the list, and you can see all this user-generated stuff. And I saw there is anime hair, right? There's crazy stuff. There's Jungle Book hair. There's all sorts of stuff. And from here, here's Braided Pigtails. You can see thumbnails, and then you can download the individual assets. And this is where it really kind of gets fun, is when you can start doing all this kind of crazy stuff. There's like mermaid tails and who knows what, right? So I got my pigtails, but also I can get I don't know, just shaggy green hair. There's no preview of that one, but we'll download it. Cool, and with that, if I go back to my geometries and I look at hair, I should now have shaggy green hair. It's green tinted, or my pigtail braids. So this gets kind of fun. One thing I think is super useful though is not only are we gonna have the geometry of this character, but we're also gonna have a skeleton underneath it that's moving this character, and that's called a rig. And there's just a few of them, but I highly recommend looking for a rig. There's one called Motion Builder. There's two. There's Motion Builder Full, which has face stuff, which you don't really need, and Motion Builder. I recommend also getting the Motion Builder. It's like what Maya uses. It's what Motion Builder, what 3D Studio Max. This is what's called the Human IK rig. And I would say definitely make sure you have that one. I think I already have it, but I'll just get it for good measure. All right, finish downloading. All right, so let's go back to geometries. This outfit is kind of minimal. Let's give it some superhero boots. There we go. And maybe those shoes are a little bit much, but we'll give it maybe a poncho. Well, that looks crazy. So you see, I'm just turning these things off and on. Give it a luchador mask. So, you know, I think there's Shrek ears in here. So you just kind of do whatever you need to do. Let's give it a casual suit. That looks great. And I'll take off the other one. All right, so we got some shoes. We got some stuff. For now, I'm going to say please go through all of the geometries. We definitely want to have, there's two different kinds of eyeballs, high poly and low poly. Choose the low poly ones. Hair, make sure you have some kind of hair. Teeth, make sure you have some kind of teeth. It's not as important for today, but it will be in 2 weeks. Don't worry about changing the topology. That's the way the polygons look on the body. Give it some eyebrows, and then eyelashes, and then a tongue. And again, at any point, if you feel like the geometry doesn't fit the hair that you've chosen, or if any of the geometry doesn't look good, you can always come back to the modeling and then change the face or change the torso any way you want to, and the clothing should adapt to those changes. All right, so I'm just going across the top here. The next one is materials. Do I want to change any of the materials for the skin, the hair, the eyes, the eyebrows, right? So I can give the skin a specific color, like I can make it look like a tune, or a, you know, again, it's young and old are the main things. I'll just put it back at default. But maybe I want the hair color to be different. I want the eyes to be green, and the tongue only has one tongue option. I can't make the teeth yellow. But anyway, so here's how it goes through. And now let's go to the next tab, which is pose and animate. So we have skeleton and poses. What I want to do is first, let's choose a skeleton. If you don't want to download the motion builder one, default is completely fine. Default is what I'd recommend. It does include face bones, which we're not going to use. And in fact, in 2 weeks, we're going to kind of rig our own face. So I recommend doing this motion builder one, the motion builder regular one, because it doesn't include a face, and it's something that Mixamo will understand and Unreal will understand very easily. So there's our skeleton, and then for our purposes, we want to have it in a T-pose. So we'll go to the next pose over, and there's a list of different poses we can put the character in. And we want T-pose. A T-pose is the way that motion capture systems identify that you are a human form. And when they get confused about where you are in the space, doing a T-pose is a way of it recognizing you as human. Now, most people don't model a T-pose. It's a little bit of a stretch on the armpit area. They usually do more of an A pose, was with the hands down a little further. And I'm sure that I could download an A pose from the pose section, now that I think about it. I can always filter by the letter A. I don't know that that's going to help out. But anyway, the idea is that we want to have it in a T-pose for rigging. This is the easiest way to for other softwares to understand it. So I'm done with this character, or as done as I'm going to be for right now, and I can export it to that FBX file format we were talking about. If I say File, I can come over to the Exporting tab and FBX, choose a folder, and now my project I made for the class, I'm going to export it to my Unreal project, which was we were doing spring class. So I'm going to export it here to my project so I can find it. And I'm going to make a folder called imports, because I can continue to import it and re-import it as I go along. And this person will be called Little Piggy, because it's got pigtails. All right, and it's ready for the Unreal Engine. It is ready to go. So I'm going to open up the Unreal Engine and bring in this T pose.
Wait, can you show how to export again?
So it's under. You go back under Files, which is all the way to the left,
Yeah.
and then choose FBX Film Box,
Uh-huh.
and then these little dot at the end lets you choose the
Okay.
folder, and then the export button is there.
All right.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
And I have it in decimeters. I do believe that's correct. If it comes in really big or really small, I could change the units. But I think that should all be fine. And then with Unreal open, I can jam it on open, and we can bring it in. Now, this is a skeletal mesh versus some of these other things that are just called static meshes that don't have bones. And there's a couple of settings we're going to check, but not many for this week. Kind of keep it standard. So we had talked a little bit last week about style guide, keeping things organized. We have, I'm going to hide all these other folders. All right. So my project has a template that I used, my starter content, and then I made my assets folder. So we have assets, and then we have blueprints, materials, skeletal, static meshes, and now we're going to make one for skeletal meshes. No, skeletal meshes. And then I'll make a folder for the character itself, because I might have many skeletal meshes. So this is Piggy. And I can drag and drop or use the import button. And we have this little window here. Yes, it is a skeletal mesh. Yes, yes, yes. There's no animations yet because we haven't gotten that far. Everything should be good, but there's this little downward pointing arrow that lets me show more settings. It says show advanced. And for now, we're going to use this use T0 as reference pose. Basically, it says don't start at a time, just we want to be frame 0. This is before animation. It throws an error. It doesn't mess anything up. I just prefer not to have errors. So that's it. I chose that. Import all. Let's see. There's here again. There's some warnings, but no errors. That's fine. This warning is saying there's no smoothing group. It's essentially saying it's Unreal being a snob and saying, "Oh, this didn't come from Maya." So yeah, it didn't come from Maya. We didn't apply smoothing groups. It's fine. But if we open up a little Piggy, it opens up the skeletal mesh editor, and we can see that everything's in its right place. Hopefully, the shaders are still compiling for the hair. We can see that it has this skeleton hierarchy right there, right? Spines and fingers, and then some of the details, which I can highlight. Okay, so I see that this is the material for the hair, or I can isolate it and say, what is this material? Ah, it's the hair. And the hair seems to be missing its texture inside of it, or maybe it was missing a texture inside of Make Human. I don't really see a texture for the hair, so I think that weird color that it was just the fact that it was missing hair, and I can make my own material. Since we've done a landscape material, let's give the hair a little color. Let's make it a little orange, because that's the color I thought it was going to be anyway. And then if I want to, I can start messing around with these other settings. Like, for instance, we don't want it to be metallic. We don't want it to be shiny. We don't want it to be smooth. So I can right-click and promote these to parameters and give them values. So 0 for metallic, 0 for specular, and 0 for roughness, which means it's going to look like a racquetball racket, right? It's going to have no, not going to be smooth at all. And now we have this hair, which turned out way more blonde than I thought it was going to. All right. So we fixed that issue with that user-generated content there. Still looking yellow. I don't know why. But everything else seems fine. Let's unisolate, and we have our character. Obviously, we can change any of the colors, any of the textures we want to here in Unreal as well. So now let's go and get ourselves some motion for our little piggy tail person. If we come back to our browser, let's go into Mixamo. Fairly straightforward to use. Our character's already rigged. Mixamo does have an auto rigger. If you were to come up with a skip. If you were to come up with a character that wasn't rigged, or if you wanted to like use that iPhone app to scan your body, you could actually rig it by saying upload character, and then you can go through the auto rigging. It's pretty straightforward. But we have a rigged character, so we still say upload character, but it's just not going to go through the auto rigging menu with us. Let's bring in that piggy. And now, if I wanted the textures to be available for me in Mixamo, I could zip up these together and import it, but it just slows down the process. So it's probably going to just be a blank white textured character, and that's fine because we're just looking at motion for right now. But give it a second. It says unable to map my existing skeleton, so wasn't expecting that. Let's zip it up. Try again. There's some there's like some there's a few issues with importing into Mixamo, but there's like a troubleshooting guide for how to get rid of it, and a lot of it is if FBX doesn't work, you might have to use a different file type, or if you zip these things up, it processes it better. Let's see what happens. I'm excited. It's trying hard. Trying as hard as the website can.
It works with me though, just importing the FBX.
Yeah, it's it's who knows. It could be the skeleton I used. It could be like now it worked because I zipped it up. All right, didn't bring all the textures, so don't give up. Just try different things. Being an engineer is about having a sense of humor, and let's move forward. So we already have the T-pose. T-pose is inside of Unreal. If we even go to Unreal and look at the animations, we see that we have the default is just a T-pose, so we have no zero animations. Let's go ahead and save in the background all those wonderful textures, and then let's start finding some stuff. So if you want to just find a bunch of animations, look for packs. And these will be like groups of 16 magic locomotion packs or 16 creature packs, 25 different farming things. These will take a little while to load in. It's a lot of bones. There's a lot of animation. So just know that the import, you might want to get yourself a cup of coffee while you're waiting for it to import. What would I use? I would use well, it depends on what your character's doing, right? If we're doing a sea captain or all sorts of stuff. I'm going to use this free test pack, which has like the Macarena and like the Samba or something. But you can also look for individual stuff. There's tons and tons of motions here. We can say, like I remember there's like a lot of catwalks, right? And then you have a couple sliders about like arm space, like as the arms going through the hips, maybe you need to spread the arms out a little bit. And then there's one called in place, which means that it doesn't move. This is how video games are, because video games don't use motion. They use parameters. They use like joysticks to go forward. And then you just have this animation walk moving forward by however far you're pushing the joystick. Whereas motion capture will look like this. But since these are so short, I'm going to keep it short. These are called stems. I'm going to keep it short because it's not going to look good to have your character repeating and jumping backwards all the time. So let me go ahead and download this one. I don't need skin. I already have my skin inside of Unreal. I just want the data Let's keep it much more lightweight. Everything else is default. That's fine. And we'll keep it simple like that. All right. So let's bring it in. Here's my folder. If I was going to do tons of animation, I can make maybe a subfolder for animations to keep it more organized. And then bring it in. And now it's going to auto-recognize, or it should auto-recognize the skeleton. It didn't. We're going to choose the skeleton to apply it to. So this is important. We're not importing another model. We're importing data to go on the model we've already imported. You always bring in your model with its textures, materials, and a T-pose first. Then you go off and you find your animations, and you can keep on adding in animations. But it's just data that you're playing on the skeleton. You only want to have one skeleton because you want it to be able to switch between all those different animations. You don't want to bring in a new skeleton per animation because that would those characters wouldn't be related. You wouldn't be able to access all the data at once. So just make sure you select the skeleton. If you want to see some glitch art, choose the wrong kind of skeleton, and it will create some sort of monster for you, or it will error out one or the other. I don't know the difference between import all and import. They seem to be the same. I'm just going to import it, and everything should be fine. There is the issue that, let's see, it seems to be upside or the wrong side for the import. That's fine. You have some details here where you can change that. Right, it's not right here. I would do it on the yes, it's the import rotations. So that's probably 90. So let's see what 90. Let's say re-import animation. Oh, wrong axis. 0. Well, third time's a charm. There you go. And it's kind of rocking back and forth. It has this like hip thing where it's kind of pinned there. Mixamo is gonna be okay, but it might be better just to rig it in Mixamo for its own animations. But here's how you bring in some motion already. You maybe have a map you've already made. This is me playing around with the water. Here's what I made last week, and you can either have bring in the skeletal mesh itself and then apply the animation. So bring in the skeletal mesh, and then as my details, I could choose an animation asset, which is the catwalk. So that's one way of doing it. And there, it's in there. Or what I find is easier is just bring in the animation itself, and it kind of has that all connected as is. All right, so there's a looping animation of something from Mixamo. So, all right, that's cool. But let's do our own animation in Radical Motion. So before we get that far, we're going to have to use Blender. And Blender, also open source. It's also a game engine of its own. It does real time. That's not it. It's called Blender. Download that, install it. It's also Mac, Windows, I think Linux. And then when you open it up, there's some things we're going to do to it. Now, I personally used to have a hate relationship with Blender, and now I'm beginning to love it more and more and more. And there's something that you some things that I recommend doing immediately to make it a better environment for doing 3D. But Blender is very, very powerful and it has a lot of amazing add-ons. So it's it's fine to learn, and it is becoming more widely accepted as an industry standard. So when you start off with Blender, you don't have it in my scene, but everyone else will have a box and a light in their scene. Let's see if I can make it happen. Well, I've already changed that, but normally when you begin, there's a box and a light and a camera, and you have to keep on deleting them. And then you go over to the things over here in the outliner, and then you hit delete, and delete doesn't work because deleting in Blender is actually hitting the X key, and you're like, okay, I'm pissed off. I have to delete this light in this box every time, and why are my key bindings so weird? I wish it was more like Cinema 4D or like Maya. So we'll address that right now. We're going to get into Blender a little bit more in depth another week. But since we're doing something very simple in Blender for right now, let's spend some time setting it up correctly. So once you were able to delete your light and your box and everything, come over to File, Defaults, and say Save Startup File. And that's what I did. And now you say OK, and then now when you open up Blender, it's empty, and that's preferable. That saves us 1 minute, but that's fine. The next thing I need to do is I want to be able to navigate it much easier, and I'm more used to Motion Builder, Maya, those kind of tools. So come over to your Preferences, and down here under Key Map, there's the option of choosing Industry Compatible, and that means that you can start using your Maya and your Motion Builder and your 3D Studio Max ways of moving around, which means I hold down Alt to rotate, and middle mouse button to move around, and right mouse button to zoom in and out. So this is easier to switch back and forth between software because it makes more sense. There are custom key bindings you could find. In fact, there is an Unreal Engine key binding, so you could do WASD, but it changes the key binding so much that you even lose the right-click context menu and you can't follow tutorials. So I went down that path thinking that'd be fun, but it was not good. Industry standard is good enough for me. So now I'm ready to use Blender. And you might have noticed that I said hold on to these zip files when you installed Make Human. We only really need this first one, but might as well install them all. These are ways of actually having more of a kind of asset interchange between Make Human and Blender. So you extract these to a folder, and then back to this Preferences menu. There's a section called Add-ons, and you're going to choose these zip files. Mine's my downloads, and they're in this Make Human. And so I would select Make Human plugin for Blender. That's the one you should do at least, and say Install Add-on. You don't want to unzip it, keep it zipped. Install the add-on. I've already done that. And once you're done saying Install Add-on, it'll show up as the only add-on on the page, and make sure you check it to turn it on. It won't be automatically turned on. You're going to check it to turn it on. Right here we can see that if I search for Make Human, I have those installed and I've checked them and they're all working. And now what's cool about that is, and this is silly, but I forget what the hotkey is to bring up the add-ons menu, but there's this tiny little arrow right here that when you hold it open, it gives you your toolbar right here. I think it was F5, but maybe it doesn't work once you have industry compatible key bindings. No, that flips it around. Anyway, your toolbar is here on the top right. Maybe if you've looked at Windows, you could figure out a way to open it up. But now that I've installed these add-ons, I can see that there's a few, and one of them is Make Human. And with Make Human on, I go back to the actual Make Human software, and all the way back at that community tab where we had our downloading assets, there's a socket. I could turn on the socket connections between the Blender and Make Human, and now I can just import it directly into Make Human. I don't have to make an FBX file. And just FYI right here, there's a thing called mass produce. This is a way of batch creating crowd scenes, or just crowd assets. Anyway, back to socket. It's on, it's connected. I have my character here and the scene. If I come over to Blender, I can import it. Well, that didn't happen last time. Let's see. Do. Oh, well, it's in there partially. That's scary. Let's go over to the settings and see if there's something I can change. Let's say load defaults. All right, so everything's default again. Let's say new. And let's try that again. Make human, import. All right, we're gonna have to not. Oh, this is great. I think it's the pigtails. Let's remove the pigtails. And just see what happens. New, clear. Open up toolbar. Import. Yeah, it was the pigtails. We're messing it up. Those user-generated content, you know? Again, being an engineer means having a sense of humor and not getting frustrated by things like that not working. So any of the standard hair, I was testing this today. A bunch of different hairs work, and I used some custom hairs too. I had a luchador mask, so that was unfortunate that we saw that, but hey, at least you saw that that's something that can happen. All right, so now I have my thing in Blender, and now I can adjust things, I can change stuff, and I can volley things back and forth between Blender and Make Human to, I can keep on syncing with Make Human to make adjustments. So that's really cool that you have the strength of an avatar generation software and a digital content creation tool that are kind of chained together over WebSocket, or not, just sockets, or I guess, over the web locally, and do things. And for us today, that thing is motion capture. We're going to do with it. In the syllabus, I put a link to Rococo, the inertial suit makers, and they have a pretty simple plugin for doing that retargeting process of putting data onto avatars. So if you go back to the syllabus, there it is. It is also a zip file. So you're going to go to your add-ons in Blender and import it. And you see right here, I have my Rococo tab. The Rococo is cool in that it can add animation from Mixamo. If you download it from Mixamo, it can add animation from motion capture systems. It also, if anyone has a Connect, it can actually run a Connect, and you could do live Connect. Or actually, no, I take that back. The Make Human has the Connect. Sorry. This is Make Human has the mocap with the Connect if you want to use it, but the Rococo can do live stuff from Rococo. We're going to use it just for the fact that it does retargeting, and this is dead simple until I make a mistake, but we'll see. So coming over here to Radical Motion, which is getrad.co. You're going to use the login that's right here. Let me add the link to Radical Motion, and then set up your stage. It needs to you see your whole body. It should be, you don't want to have a crazy background. You want to make it easy for it to be able to seen. You want to not confuse the camera. Make it easy on the camera, and just upload it. And then give it a name, and then after a while, it'll process. It'll process in less than 5 minutes. And then this is just a video you're uploading, by the way. And then when it's done, you have your projects, and you can take a look at them, and you can scan them and download them. I am going to download this motion capture. Nope. I was gonna do it. Let's see. So now we're back where we were before. We can see the motion in real time. Let's download the FBX. Give it a second to think about it. It says my FBX is ready. Okay, so let's download it. I had to prepare it first, I guess. And now there, it's downloaded. Right there. Oh, it already did it once before as well. Let's find it in the folder.
Hey Todd, why is the foot gliding happening?
So the foot sliding is happening just because it's using a webcam. It's that foot sliding happens with Rococo suits as well with perception neuron. That's called drift. It happens more with webcam because it's an easier, lower fidelity tool. They're actually actively working on the foot sliding. In fact, I've done motion capture sessions with them. We did a bunch of like ground yoga poses, stuff like that, to increase the amount of foot contacts in their machine learning database. So it's something they're actively working on, and they're actually applying for a Epic Mega Grant, and Epic is like, until you fix the foot sliding, we're not going to give you a grant. So they're actually actively working on it because it's the last thing left. After that they maybe get into more finger fidelity, and I don't think they would try to get into face just yet. But yeah, that's why it slides. It will happen. Upper body's pretty good. And then this performer, Professor Niederhauser, is walking in a very large space. This is a lot to do for a webcam-based system. That's really testing the limits of it, the jump and all that kind of stuff. I think it's actually doing pretty well versus previous generations I've seen of this software. So you can't drag and drop files into Blender. I'm sure someone has an add-on for that, but we have to import an FBX and then find out my downloads, and it was called ABT. So let's go ahead and choose that and say import. It's a different scale. You see it's down here. But the whole process of the retargeting is about translating things between different shaped characters, right? From a performer to an avatar. So that's what retargeting is anyway. So it's fine that this is small for right now. And if I scrub, we watch that the animation is happening in space. Maybe we need to have a little bit longer timeline. Seems to go on for a little while. But here's the whole dance here. There we go. That's good enough for me. All right, so let's go back to the first frame. We want them both in T-pose. All right, so Radical Motion puts a T-pose on the first frame. Ours is in T-pose, therefore they're not off. If our character was in A-pose and the motion was in a T-pose, then it would make it go really, really high. It would be off a little bit. So you want everything to be in a perfect T-pose to start off with. And then we choose the source. The source is the motion. Right, so that is the human. Should get a little dropper. Or which one was it? It was this one, and the next one is the target is the other one. Let's see. I have to do it in here, I guess. Great. So we have the motion capture data is the source of our data, and we're going to target the human avatar, put the motion on there. And let's go ahead and say build the bone list. It's going to say this bone name equals that bone name. They're pretty similar because Radical Motion's trying to make their stuff compatible with the human IK system. I see it's spine 1 on one. It's called spine 2 another one, but all this looks pretty close. We don't have as many hand bones. So some of these are missing, but it seems to be fine for right now. We can manually change these names or select the bones if we need to do a manual retargeting. We'll do that later on. Let's not get into that, hopefully, this early in the semester. And then we just say retarget animation. This could actually take a little bit of a while. This is a very long take. This is many minutes. Actually, now that I think about it, I did this before, and I was like, I should choose a shorter take. This is like an entire performance for an entire song. So Blender's saying it's not responding, but it will come back every target using this data. And essentially, it'll be done, and I just need to export the make human character by itself and maybe delete the data so that I'm not confusing the FBX file. Once this whole rebuilding boneless thing, it's just like a Excel spreadsheet. And if you do find at some point you're doing a custom one in any software, Maya, Motion Builder, Blender, there's usually a way to save these and export them later. Right? It did push it up, but there's my data. I can't tell you how easy that is compared to other ways I've done it. So again, you guys are lucking out. I do want to put it back at 0, 0, 0. Let's get rid of our motion data and take our human and move it down. It's hard to navigate all brand new software. I'm trying to do as little as possible in Blender, but if I want to put this precisely at 0, 0, 0, I would need to go to the properties somewhere, and say 0, 0, 0. There it is. So now it's perfectly on the ground, and we have motion capture data. Who would have thunk? So let's export our FBX, and I think default was fine. Let's see. Yeah, I'm baking animation, so I think everything's fine. We'll see. And I would call this the name of the animation. So this one was walking around. Export to my downloads. It seems like that's done, or almost done. I don't see where the progress bar is. Oh, it's just giving me the whole Wheel of Death thing, because it is such a large take.
How does radical motion react to like using props or acting help?
It's for individuals and it's not for props. It doesn't do multiple people. You should keep it. You should play nice with it, and not try to trick it, unless you want to try to trick it, and then you can trick it. But it's good for individuals, being able to see from both the foot all the way through the head without any clipping. Good lighting, high contrast between you and the background. If you have a green screen, it's even better. And yeah, it does have a live version. Our account doesn't accommodate the live version, but I have another account that does. But they're really in flux right now. It takes a lot, as you can imagine, to run an AI on the same computer that's running Unreal in real time from a webcam. And it only works off of like really beefy RTX cards because RTX has tensor cores. So, and it wasn't streaming well. So they're actually coming up with a cloud solution to stream it from the cloud with minimal latency. So we're kind of waiting for that one. But when we start getting into more live mocap, we're going to use the OptiTrack for that. All right. So I have walking around here. And let's finish up this demo with adding in our walking around animation. Again, I don't want to import the mesh. I want to put it on the mesh. Very important thing, but it's a common mistake. Yes, it has geometry. I didn't export just the data. I exported the entire FBX, but I don't need that geometry because I already have it in this project, and I want to keep all my data on one asset. So bring in the animation for the entire exported length and say import all. And there's still a chance that this could turn completely into something crazy. We'll see. Well, it brought it in two different ways. Is this going to be a nightmare? All right, so it didn't scale it right. See, it was a tiny dude on my big guy. You see that? So that's obviously, again, glitch art with motion capture data is definitely a thing that occurs often. Inside of the Rococo retargeting, which I can't do because I already deleted the other character, is a button for scale. And you want to keep the scale. Let me bring back in the ABT data and just to show you that, and then we'll be done. Or you can just keep it so he's really squatty. It's whatever you want. It's to your taste. I'm not gonna tell you how to make art. All right, so my downloads. Let's bring in that ABT data again. Oh, that's right. We have to hit import. We can't drag it in. I always forget that. All right, import. I could probably scale it here by 10, and that would fix it as well. But I'll just bring it in this way. All right, so the data is tiny. It is our source. And we're going to build bone list. That's all fine. Maybe it was when I scaled it when I export it. This is a very simple fix. I just wanted to show it. Oh, auto scale. No, because auto scale is right. Because it is scaled right here.
It might be because you removed the pigtails, but not in the middle.
It might be because I removed the pigtails. Actually, you're right. I am kind of making this up as I go along. Another thing I could do is let's go back over to this import and say let's import it at a different scale and see if that fixes it. Oh, this is just a nightmare now. That's fantastic. So this is exactly what I wanted to have happen. I'm so glad you guys get to see my art being made. So I guess the closer here, because we're already over time, is that I changed my character halfway through the process, and you can change your character. In fact, you should change your character when you're working on a project. You should always keep on re-importing the same character. But I should have re-imported the bald character here for my root skeletal asset. They're not making connections now, and they're a little confused. So if anyone has any problems with this, don't be afraid of using radical motion. It is straightforward. It's just I changed my character halfway through. But you can always re-import your base mesh. You should always keep re-importing and keeping the same base mesh so that you're not creating duplicate files. And that's something that'll be more apparent when you don't do what I'm saying. When you bring in duplicate files, you'll see how messy it can get. So it's one of those lessons sometimes you have to learn by making the mistakes. So my fault for using pigtails. But we could see that if I came back over here to another folder and just brought in the animation with the model itself. Let's do that. So bring in the skeletal mesh and the rig. Let's see what happens there. Making sure that we have the animation. Nice. I don't want to merge bones. Let's go to an empty folder. Nope. All right, bring it all in. Sure. All right. The data's all fine. So it was a mistake with switching my skeletal meshes midstream. But that gets us going with doing some motion. Think about bringing in meaningful characters and meaningful motions into your world. Let us know on your blog post what's happening, what the character is, and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that'll get you up and running with avatar creation and motion. Cool. Any questions on that?
Yeah, on radical motion, is it capturing with any infrared, or is it just pure camera? And if it's pure camera, then can you, like pure pixels, then can you swap it into like a better, like nicer digital camera?
You can use using a better resolution camera.
Yeah.
The AI downscales it to 640 by 480.
Okay.
No matter what you do. But a fun thing you can do is you can reverse motion capture movies.
Oh.
Yeah, it's super fun. Right? I was doing some Buster Keaton stuff. So, it's really hard to find a shot that doesn't have camera movement, that has the person framed both toes to head, but you can, you're just uploading videos. So
Did you roto it out to get the contrast right?
that would probably be a smarter idea, but we were able just to do it kind of without that. So
Nice.